By dusk, the hill would be a tomb. But first, there was only the sound of retreat. Hill 412, dawn. The human assault had just crumpled.
All units, fall back. I repeat, fall back. The hill is lost.
No rescue, no reinforcement. The hill belongs to the enemy now.
The soft skins flee like insects. Hill 412 is ours. Signal the Dominion. Victory at dawn.
Not infantry, not even a rifleman, just an engineer. And now they're leaving me here.
William, you are rear echelon. Stay hidden. Don't do anything stupid. Out.
But William had never needed permission. His tools, his detonator, a mind that read the ground like a language.
Water, seeping. That's a buried aquifer. That's a weapon.
A grim smile formed behind his skull paint. The hill didn't know it yet, but it had just chosen a side. William moved through the underbrush, tracking the water's spread. The aquifer was larger than he'd first thought.
If I reroute the flow east, saturate the inner slope, the whole face will lose cohesion. Then mine the only solid paths. Anyone up there becomes a target for gravity.
The plan came together. He had no infantry, but a mountain of water and a hill that trusted its own weight.
Let the soft skins run. We own this rock now. Burn their abandoned supplies. Make a fire they can see from orbit. Dig in. I want a defensive ring around the crest. This hill will be a fortress before nightfall.
The aliens dug with four-armed enthusiasm, carving trenches and piling sandbags exactly where the slope was most vulnerable.
They're fortifying the kill zone, concentrating everything right on top of the aquifer's path.
William checked his harness, his charges, his detonator. All he needed was a few hours and no one looking too closely at the mud. By mid-morning, the hill had an occupying army and an engineer with a blueprint. Neither side realized they were on the same side of a losing bet. He knelt by the slope and fired up the compact drill. The aquifer's pulse answered through the stone.
Saturate the inner layer. Let the water do the heavy lifting. Pressure builds, but patience is part of the weapon.
He pressed the first charge into the bedrock's smile, a whisper of future thunder. A four-man patrol passed not 20 meters from his position, their chatter lazy with victory.
Lazy, but lethal. One wrong move, and they'd vaporize this whole slope, and me with it.
One soldier barked as his boots sank into mud. The patrol veered left, avoiding the growing wetness.
The ground is damp, so what? It's a hill. They have water here. Focus on fortifying, not puddles.
William exhaled. The clock was now counting against him. He had to move faster.
30 more charges, then the mines. If Dusk caught him early, this hill would kill him before it killed them.
By noon, the hill's spine was quietly cracking. Water wept from new seams. The trap was taking shape. William crawled the ridgeline on his belly, burying mines beneath roots and loose shale. Each one sealed a route.
No one gets up or down this slope now without asking me, and the only answer is a crater.
Below, alien transporters ground upward, disgorging troops and heavy mortars directly onto the softening earth. A soldier stepped into a new seep and frowned, tapping his comms unit with a wet claw.
Valley aquifers leak. It's a broken human pipe. Do not fill my ears with mud reports. I want all vehicles positioned on the east slope. Overwatch. If the humans return, we crush them from height.
The order piled more mass onto the slope that was already drinking itself blind.
They're loading the trigger. Every vehicle, every soldier. I couldn't ask for a better target.
He crawled back to his detonator board. Circuits primed, lights winking amber. The hill's pulse now matched his own.
The water's moving faster than I planned. If I don't trigger at dusk, the slope triggers itself, and it won't wait for me.
Afternoon dragged the aliens into lax routine. Some slept, Others cleaned weapons under sun-bleached tarps.
6 hours, not one counterattack. These creatures have no stomach for real war. Hill 412 will be a monument to their cowardice.
William crawled a circuit around the slope's waist, linking pressure triggers. His body caked in mud and sweat. 2 mechanics, sent to patch a generator, followed a new water trail. Their curiosity walked them onto what used to be solid ground. The sinkhole opened without warning, a wet, gulping mouth that swallowed both of them to their chests in seconds.
If they scream, the whole garrison hears. If I don't act, they'll report the instability. No choice.
He moved like a shadow with a spade, 2 swift blows, then silence, and the wet earth smoothed over everything. He dragged the bodies into a crevice and scattered fresh debris. Under an hour passed before someone would miss them.
2 technicians. They're probably asleep in a hollow. Send a runner. I won't have my war council interrupted by lazy mechanics.
They'll be missed before dusk. I've bled away my last cushion. The trigger must be pulled on time, or not at all.
Head count. Now, I want those 2 mechanics found. Turn over every rock if you must.
A patrol assembled, no longer lazy. They moved down the damp slope, scanning every bush. William armed a packet charge above the barracks, a small rockfall, just enough noise to buy an hour. The charge blew. Stone and dirt cascaded onto the awning. The patrol sprinted toward the sound. 2 aliens crawled from the rubble, bleeding. The rest shouted for medics. Confusion bought him minutes.
A minor landslide. Natural. Double the watch. The humans might use this if they are near.
William pressed his forearm as blood welled through. A stone shard had bit deep. He gritted his teeth.
Lost blood, but kept time. The patrol's off my scent. Dusk will be the real weapon.
He reached his fallback and checked the detonator board. Amber lights steady. The trap still breathed. The sun dipped below the smoke. Krell's confidence was absolute. But the ground beneath him was already whispering its final testimony. William tore a strip from his coverall and bound the wound tight. The bleeding slowed, but the ache stayed.
Patrols every 50 meters. But the circuit is 90% complete. One more splice.
Pools hissed across the slope now, eating the dusty surface into black mud. A transporter tried to reposition. The ground didn't argue. It simply opened and swallowed the rear axle whole.
Abandon the vehicle. Move the rest higher. It's wet ground, not a tactical withdrawal. No evacuation. I will not yield this hill to mud. The Dominion does not retreat from weather.
William pressed the last splice home. The board's lights snapped from amber to a solid, waiting green.
1 hour until full dark. The hill's opinion is about to be heard.
The sun dragged the last orange across the sky. Krell's force huddled on the high ground, blind to the fuse beneath them. William watched the last light die. His finger rested on the trigger. The hill held its breath. Krell's voice cracked across the hilltop, ordering every soldier into a defensive ring, weapons aimed downslope.
Stand to. The humans always counterstrike at dusk. Let them break themselves on our line.
William, from his hidden ridge, watched the alien bodies press together, a crowd on a weakening floor. He keyed his comms one last time, a rasping signal into the darkening air.
Anthony, this is William. I am about to give the hill back its opinion.
Static. No reply. Just the wind and the weight of the coming dark.
They left me. But they didn't leave me empty-handed. The hill has no such luxury.
Below, the alien formation was a dense, perfect target, right where the aquifer had been working all day.
Every design has a failure point. Today, the hill is the design, and they are the point.
His finger curled tighter. The trigger was no longer a question. It was an answer waiting to be spoken. He pressed the first sequence. The aquifer charges blue in a chain of muffled thunder. Water erupted from a dozen new fissures, a liquid avalanche sluicing through the alien formation.
Artillery. Return fire, you fools. The humans are in the valley.
William pressed the second sequence. The stable paths bloomed into fire and shrapnel, cutting off every retreat. The hill began to sink. Not slide, sink, like a ship taking water. Aliens stumbled, clawing for footing. Then the detonator board crackled. A single circuit light blinked red and died. The final trigger was dead.
Short in the main bus. Bypass it manually. 30 seconds before the whole slope lets go without me.
Sniper fire streaked from the hilltop. The aliens had seen him at last. Dust kicked around his position.
Hold, steady. The ground doesn't care about incoming fire, and neither should you.
He bridged the contacts with a bare wire. The board hummed back to life, but the slope was already a half-born grave. He slammed the final switch home. The hill answered with a roar that shook the sky. The entire slope, supersaturated, detached like a falling wall. A liquid avalanche of mud, stone and screaming. Bunkers folded. Vehicles tumbled end over end. The hill was no longer a hill. It was a flow.
No, this cannot be. The Dominion.
Krell was swept away, arms flailing, his roar lost in the grinding earth. The shockwave threw William onto his back. Dust and debris rained over the ridge. He gasped, spitting mud, and raised his head to see the hill become a churning sea. Where alien ranks had stood, only settling muck remained. Arms reached from the slurry, then went still. William lay on the ridge, chest heaving. The hill was silent now, a wet grave swallowing the last light. He had not fought them. He had simply let the hill speak. He forced himself upright and limped into the new mudscape. Every joint screamed. A few aliens still clawed at the muck, buried to their chests. One gurgled a plea he didn't need translated.
No prisoners, no survivors to report. This wasn't cruelty, it was completion.
He found Krell's command post flattened. The commander's ornate helmet lay half-sunk in the mire. No body. The dust hung like a shroud. Hill 412 was no longer a strategic point. It was a mass grave.
They called me rear echelon. Today, the entire rear collapsed on their heads.
A torn Dominion banner flapped weakly in the settling breeze, symbol of conquest, now litter. He turned from the carnage and limped back toward the ridge where his equipment lay scattered. His toolkit was covered in dust, the detonator still warm in his grip. He hadn't dropped it. He settled against a rock and opened his data pad. The after-action report would be short. His fingers, steady despite the exhaustion, tapped 7 words onto the cracked screen. Didn't fight them, just gave the hill back its opinion. He attached a technical summary of the aquifer reroute and the collapse sequence, then hit send. On a distant ridge, human observers trained their scopes on Hill 412. The dust cloud was still rising.
What in the hell? That's not an artillery strike. That's the whole damn hill coming down.
His command console pinged with an incoming priority message. Sender ID, William, engineer.
Didn't fight them. Just gave the hill back its opinion. That crazy son of a... he buried an entire company.
Within minutes, the human command net was alive with questions. No one had an answer.
They'll come, or they won't. Either way, the hill knows who won today.
He hadn't done it for recognition. He'd done it because the hill deserved a say. Aboard the Dominion flagship, the tactical display over Hill 412 went ominously silent. No heartbeat, no distress call, just void. A search drone was dispatched, its lens sweeping the coordinates where the hill should have been. The feed resolved into a nightmare. The entire eastern slope had slumped into a churning mud flow. Officers stared at the screen, their iridescent eyes reflecting the ruination. Mandibles hung slack. Scorch patterns and concentric seepage rings told of shaped charges and diverted groundwater, not an orbital strike. The analysts assumed a crack human sabotage team. No one even considered a single engineer they had dismissed that morning. Krell's final burst transmission was replayed, the war captain shouting orders, then a roar of collapsing earth. His last words were swallowed by the avalanche. The recording went to static. The command chamber was silent. High Command was enraged. No target to retaliate against, only a mocking silence from the mud. An investigation was launched, but the hill had already passed its verdict and buried the evidence. A new hum crossed the ridge, a human scout drone, smaller and faster than the alien patrols. He raised one arm in a deliberate wave, a signal no alien would give. The drone banked and hovered.
William, it's Anthony. Visual contact. What the hell did you do?
My job. Nothing more.
Anthony's transmission broke static. When he spoke again, the dismissal was gone.
You neutralized a company-sized element, alone. We're sending a bird for you now.
William acknowledged and started limping toward the pickup zone, not looking back. The command net shifted from shock to grim recognition. A lone engineer had rewritten tactical doctrine with mud and wire.
I didn't rewrite anything. The ground has an opinion, and it's usually the last word.
By full dark, he was off the hill. The after-action briefing could wait. He'd already left his report in the mud. 3 cycles after Hill 412 fell silent, the Dominion War Council convened in a chamber of black glass and cold light. Intelligence officers presented a reconstruction. One hostile, utilizing shaped charges and aquifer reroute, had liquefied an entire slope. They had no name, only a silhouette and a designation: Human Combat Engineer, previously ignored as support personnel. The council sat in silence. Then, the head tactician spoke the words that would change doctrine. They reclassified human combat engineers as autonomous weapons, the same category reserved for orbital bombardment platforms. The official entry was terse: target priority immediate, capability environmental collapse, countermeasure none known. A new directive was issued to every Dominion fleet: no engagement with human forces without anti-engineer protocols. The database updated, the classifications spreading through the Dominion's intelligence network like a virus. One hill, one man, and now an entire interstellar empire was learning to read the ground. The lesson was written in mud and silence, and it would not be forgotten. When the after-action report hit the official records, Commander Anthony appended a line that earned its own legend. 1 engineer, no infantry, neutralized an enemy strongpoint. Recommend immediate review of engineer deployment doctrine. The report circulated across Human Command, passed between officers like a subversive pamphlet.
They read my note like scripture. I was just stating a fact.
When he was assigned to a new combat engineer unit, the greeting was different. No dismissal, only reverent distance. He didn't seek the legend. He simply moved to the next ridgeline, eyes already on the terrain. The detonator board was logged as evidence, but the philosophy behind it became theirs. His toolkit, reissued, carried the same weight. The tools didn't change, only the hands that respected them. By dawn of the next campaign, William was already preparing the ground, no longer rear echelon, but a name that made enemy intel twitch. He walked toward the next hill, and this time they knew to listen. The reclassification was no longer a report. It became a briefing slide, projected in every command chamber across the Dominion. Human combat engineers, classification weapon. Engagement prohibited without armored support. Officers stared at the directive. The same words that had once described planetary siege platforms now applied to single dirt-smeared humans. They were shown simulation footage of Hill 412, The liquefaction, the buried company. The silent auditorium smelled of denial. Counter-engineer task forces were commissioned. Geological scans became standard pre-landing protocol. But the lesson still wasn't complete. They learned to fear the ground itself, but not the mind that could weaponize any patch of it. One officer, scarred and bitter, spoke what many thought. We can't bomb every hill. We can't fight the whole planet. The war hadn't ended, but its shape had changed. The engineers were no longer invisible. They were the scariest thing on any battlefield, and it all started with one man who gave a hill back its opinion. The galaxy would never look at a slope the same way again. Weeks later, on a scraped-out training field, William stood before a squad of new combat engineers. Their eyes held the same awe once reserved for gunnery sergeants. He spoke of Hill 412 not as a victory, but as a lesson in reading the ground's opinion. When a young sapper asked how he knew it would work, William's answer was simple.
The ground doesn't lie. Give it a way to speak, and it'll tell you everything. And it'll tell you everything.
He sketched the aquifer reroute in the dirt, showing how a buried reservoir became a weapon. The recruits watched him draw, like they were witnessing the architecture of a cathedral. He didn't promise them glory, only that the ground would always keep its promises. By the time he finished, they understood. A combat engineer was a conversation with the battlefield. He picked up his toolkit and moved to the next hill, leaving behind a new generation that would listen before they fought.
They'll do fine. They're already reading the mud.
Months later, Hill 412 grew green again. The crater was a scar, but wild grass had learned to speak in the new contours. A simple alloy plaque stood at the summit. Hill 412, reclaimed by its own opinion. Engineer William Dawn to Dusk. Beside it, the detonator board rested in a sealed case. Wire-cut ends curled like a question, finally answered. Commander Anthony walked the same ridge where the observers had stood, alone now under a quiet sun.
Should have sent that bird sooner, William. You never needed our permission.
He placed a unit patch atop the case, a grimy gear, the emblem of combat engineers. Around the marker, new grass forced its way through the hardened slurry. The ground was keeping its promises. The note itself, etched into the alloy, became the only epitaph. Didn't fight them, just gave the hill back its opinion. Long after the war turned, recruits would visit this hill to understand what one set of tools could do. The moon rose over Hill 412, and the ground held its silence like a kept secret. The reclassification bled into every Dominion officer curriculum. Cadets learned to scan terrain for human engineers before engaging any battlefield. On half a dozen human fronts, engineers whispered the name of Hill 412, like a prayer before arming their first charge. William's name was never on a citation, but his doctrine became the dirt under every combat engineer's nails. He served 3 more campaigns, his beard graying, the skull paint fading into the creases of a face that had heard too many hills.
Retirement. They gave me a patch and a handshake. I gave them a language.
He left his toolkit with the unit quartermaster. The detonator board had already become a museum piece. On his last day, he climbed a low ridge overlooking a quiet valley. No enemies, no aquifers, just the ground, still speaking. He sat down, his old joints settling into the earth, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to simply listen. The galaxy had learned to fear the ground, but the man who taught it was content to be forgotten.
Didn't fight them, just gave the hill back its opinion.
In a Dominion Officer Academy, a lecture hall of chitin and cold light, the instructor dimmed the chamber. On the central hollow pedestal, Hill 412 played out in silent simulation. The collapse, the burying, the utter erasure. The cadets sat motionless, their usual arrogance stripped away by the sight of mud swallowing a company whole. When the simulation ended, One cadet broke the silence with a question no instructor had ever been forced to answer. The instructor's voice was flat, stripped of pride. You do not fight them. You find where they are, and you go the other way. The words were now doctrine. In every engagement, the first order was to locate human engineers, then retreat before they located you. A new generation of Dominion officers would take that rule into every campaign. Born from a hill that spoke once and buried an army, they would study aquifers, soil composition, seismic signatures, trying to read the ground the way one human once did. But the ground kept its secrets, and the engineers kept coming. The classification remained weapon. The hill was silent, the lesson carved in mud. The galaxy had learned to fear the dirt. Long after the last battle, a faded photograph was recovered from a field archive. It showed a young engineer on a ridge, detonator in hand, the ruined hill a scar behind him. His skull paint was cracked by sweat, his smile faint and knowing, a private joke with the dirt, and the only caption, still stored in the unit database, "Didn't fight them, just gave the hill back its opinion." The photograph faded to gray, then to black. They took the hill at dawn. By dusk, one human engineer had buried them all. He never asked for a monument. The hill was enough. Stars wheeled over hill 412, and the mud still whispered the name of an engineer who gave it a voice. And the ground, patient and eternal, kept its final word. Just a hill, just an opinion, just a man who listened.